I remember everybody calling, like, man, your boy crazy. And I'm like, what happened? Because I wasn't watching the Pro Bowl.
Brian Morgan is going to fake it. On the run, and he's going to run short. Sean Taylor.
You was like, wow. That's why he can be known as one of the best safeties to play the game.
Situation for you down in Florida. I heard you were, in fact, shot at. Did that make everything a little more real? How did that change you?
Well, I'd rather not comment on it. It's just, you've seen a couple players in the last couple of weeks, be subjects to shootings, and it's just a life-changing thing with one shot of a bullet or whatever the case is. It changes lives.
You're going to be a football player when you grow up.
Today is the best day of your life.
He might be the finest quarterback produced in the last 10 years.
He needs someday like it. That's all I need.
Fortunately for me, I didn't lose my life. Didn't lose my job.
Football convinced me that life is a team game.
Rest of your life, nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it.
For a man who has had thousands of photographs capture his life, Sean Taylor lacks a clear image. During his career, he granted few interviews and kept a close inner circle. The public was never allowed to develop a full picture of Sean Taylor. Sean Michael Taylor was born to Donna Jr. and Pete Taylor, who parted ways before his birth. For the first 10 years of his life, he lived in the Miami area with his mother, great-grandmother, and half-siblings Monica, Jamal, and Sasha.
The energy he had on that field was the same energy he had when he was little. Kicking rocks when we're walking home from school, asking somebody underneath the car, "What are you doing, sir?" Just always going, never stopped.
He used to want to follow my brother all the time, and the three-wheeler bike, he used to always want to get on it and ride it with my brother, and so we ended up buying him one, and he loves it.
That relationship he had with my mother can't compare with anyone else. I think he was more so a protector, and that started from being younger. He felt like he was the man of the house all the time. I mean, his father would always come by, see him, Christmas, bring presents. He always was in his life. But that bond that he had with my mother, I think when he had to go stay with his dad, that really hurt him because he would be away from her.
When Taylor was 10, his mother battled an illness. He and his siblings were broken apart, sent to live with their respective fathers.
He kind of went into a shell. He was very quiet, and not really that happy-go-lucky child that he was. It just kind of changed him a little.
I didn't really know how long he'd be with me. I thought it was going to be a short time. I tried to re-emphasize that I'm not the person that's going to try to keep you away from your mom and your brothers and sisters.
Taylor still felt responsible to be the man of the house for his mother. He planned to reunite and protect her children.
He was like, "Auntie, I'm going to play football and I'm going to make money." He really wanted everyone to be together. He wanted his mom and his sisters and brothers to be back together. And I think that was his focus that drove him.
Taylor started running back in safety for Miami's Gulliver Prep. His desire and gifts were honed by his father, who put him through a rigorous daily training regimen. Workouts could happen anytime, anywhere.
We would get in front of his house, work out. His daddy would get us up, take us, trick us. Like, come on, let's go get some slushies. We get the slushies, and as soon as you get back in the car, he'll take your slushies and make you run to the house. Now you gotta run all the way home to get the slushies. Like, there's no better motivator than Pete Taylor.
I just remember stories of Sean telling me about how they used to run on the highways. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, with cars going by? He was like, yeah, man, just out there running in nighttime, morning time, before school, after school, like, just running.
relaxation did not come easy for Taylor. He bristled at the idea of someone outworking him.
He was competitive in everything. In fishing, he was competitive. In the state championship game, the running back on the opposing team was Mr. Football for 2A, for our classification. Really? Really? And you're not going to give that to Sean?
You got to think Sean Taylor's just a little upset that Rashard Dudley got 2A Player of the Year.
Sean was trying to rip that guy's head off every single time that guy touched the ball.
You got to think Sean Taylor's just roaming that field, just trying to hunt down number 5, and every time those two helmets come together, there are words spoken. Sean Taylor nails Rashard Dudley. Sean Taylor makes him pay.
Taylor made 3 trips to the end zone to Dudley's 1 and set a state record with his 44th touchdown of the season.
Ortega, he's in trouble.
I couldn't get the ball off. I had gotten flushed, and I had to get turned around before I finally saw him. He was wide open.
Ortega throwing to the end zone. And Sean Taylor hauls it in.
The film of it is hysterical because, I mean, he is throwing an all-out tantrum.
I'm open! I'm open! Throw at me!
Taylor ended his high school career a state champion, one step closer to his dream of using football stardom to reunite his mother's side of the family. When we return,
he always wanted to have kids. When we started dating in college, if it was up to him, it was like we would have had like an army, you know, at 19 years old, which wasn't gonna fly by my father, but.
During high school, Sean Taylor lived with his father in the Colonial Drive section of Miami. He attended Gulliver Prep, a prestigious private school. But potential danger was never far away.
This isn't a luxurious area. This is middle class, but at the same time, we're basically squished in between two hoods.
A hood here.
There's a hood right here, then there's a hood right here. So both hoods basically come in here, and then this is the meeting ground where the war could potentially happen. We had to find a way to basically, I guess you could say, separate ourselves from the negativity, things that was going on as far as in the streets and things of that nature, and focus just on sports and things that kept us in more of a positive direction. However, we always knew how to let it be known that we was never going to be pushovers either.
I don't know if he was 14 or 15, playing basketball on the park. Somehow it got into some sort of an altercation, and a guy pulled a gun on him, put it to his head, and it jammed. He told me he should have been gone. And when it jammed, he knocked it out and ran.
But Taylor never considered escaping the area entirely. Miami was his home. It would also be his college, and the position he would play for the Hurricanes was of great interest to junior running back Clinton Portis.
I hadn't heard of Sean Taylor, and all of a sudden they fixing the incoming recruit highlight film, and I'm like, they slid one in on him because his highlights were all running back. He jumping over people's head. I'm like, who is this? And I remember calling Coach Solinger like, who is he? And he was like, he's coming to play safety. He don't want to play running back. I'm like, what?
I remember my first visit to watch them practice. We got to the gate. He said, who are you here to see? And we said, Sean Taylor. And he just called, come on in, come on in. You know, that boy gonna be on first string. He's tough.
When I first saw him, I was like, wow, you know, a beast. You didn't have to touch that kid, man. He knew how to play the game.
He's a man amongst boys. He's running interceptions back. He's running punts back. He was doing so much.
Number 26 shows you why he's the #1 safety in the country.
Definitely one of my favorite plays was against Florida State. PK Sam caught a pass. He just like knocked him flat on his ass, made him do like a 360.
At Miami, Taylor also started dating Jackie Garcia, who he had a crush on since high school.
We had like science or something together, so I guess he went home that night. I met this girl at school. I like her, but I need to learn Spanish because she's Cuban.
But he started wanting to learn Spanish. He started coming home speaking in Spanish, wanted them talk to him in Spanish so he can be able to communicate. So.
Was he able to pull it off?
A little bit.
His junior season, Taylor intercepted 10 passes to lead the nation. He returned 3 for touchdowns.
It's just like tackle after tackle, interception after interception. He just went from like here and he just blew up.
After just 3 years at Miami, Taylor declared for the draft, drawing the attention of a former teammate, now in Washington.
I remember, telling Coach Gibbs and Greg Williams, like, we need to draft Sean Taylor.
And he would call on the phone, and he'd go, Sean. He'd go like that. That's why he didn't hang up.
I'm Sean Taylor, University of Miami, the hardest hitter in the draft.
The hardest hitter in the draft chose not to attend it. Taylor stayed in Florida to celebrate with his family.
He was actually living his dream. He slept his entire life on an NFL pillow until the day he got drafted. And I still have it.
I was like, wow, he really did this. He was sitting there and he would talk to us and say, life is gonna change and, things are gonna be better. And, it was never about himself. It was always about everybody else, which made it even more.
Excuse me.
With the 5th pick in the 2004 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Sean Taylor, safety, University of Miami.
He was very proud. He was proud that he was going to be able to take care of us.
Coming up.
It was like when your dad took you fishing when you were 7 years old. You couldn't sleep the night before because you're like, yes, fishing. Sean did that with football. Football, I love it. Smash somebody. There was only 4 of us drafted in 2004 from the Redskins, Sean and I, and then 2 offensive linemen. We went to the rookie symposium together, and I remember Sean asking me in the room, what is this? I said, well, it's 3 days. They teach you how to be an NFL football player. You go through all kinds of stuff. And he said, oh, I'm not doing this. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm going back to Miami.
We had a player leave. You all are reminded that nobody leaves without coming through me, getting permission to leave, no matter what, unless you're in an ambulance.
I'm in awe because I'm so green out of Utah State, and I'm looking at him going, you just do whatever you want to do, huh? I like that. I like that.
He kind of charted his own path in life. You were going to have to earn your way with him. He wasn't going to be somebody that just came in and immediately would be friends with you or as a coach, have a close relationship with you and be willing to do whatever you want him to do. He's his own man.
Sean had great instincts of people, and that Sean did not have the ability to really turn the cheek much in his life on anything, and that he wanted you to be honest with him at all times, and one dishonest comment, one thing from body language, he was great with that too, would turn him off.
Sean Taylor soured quickly on the media, thanks to a teammate's prank.
I remember LeVar Arrington coming from behind and hitting him with a shaving cream pie.
And what happened? Ricky! Yeah!
The menthol shaving cream pie burned Taylor's eyes, as well as bridges with the local press.
I really felt like that was it.
Oh, man.
He's like, who are you guys to laugh at me? from that moment, the media could only be a detriment. They would never get to know the real me. So why put up this fake facade and give you some BS quotes when you know I don't want to talk to you, and I know I don't want to talk to you, and what you get out of me isn't really even going to help you do your job. So F it.
How would you grade day one?
It's day one.
Negotiations for Taylor's rookie contract were tense. While his agent changed 3 times, his stance with the media did not. As Taylor remained silent, the criticism grew louder.
You know, he lead the rookie symposium, and you had the contract issues and everything else that was going on, and this is all before he played down. It was so much negative press behind him that, you know, I think he kind of went into a shell.
Taylor kept his time in front of cameras to game days. In his preseason debut, he ended his first series with an interception.
First game, NFL, he was the best player on the field, and you could see it.
There is Sean Taylor. We talked about this rookie and what a splash he's already made.
I said, all right, we got ourselves a Hall of Fame Pro Bowl player here.
That's his 4th takeaway in 2 1/4 games for the Redskins.
Everybody could see it. Even though all us are top flight athletes, it was something different about him, and it separated him from the rest of us.
We were playing against Cincinnati. We talked about this play all week. And we were like, you know, Sean, you're going to go out there under Chad Johnson, make him throw it high, and I was going to get to, like, come over the top and, like, be the hero. And he jumps up and picks it off.
Intercepted by the rookie Sean Taylor.
You drew it up to be a good play, and he made it a great play. He made it a turnover. He made it something mere mortals can't do.
God made certain people play football for sure. He was one of them.
But Taylor was not made to be away from home for long.
He would always want to win because I think they had the day off on Monday, and if you win, you'd get Tuesday off. So he knew Sunday night or whatever, out of there, and try to catch a flight back Tuesday night. So he'd go home even if it was for a day.
You never know, like he'll be gone, and next thing you know, like, who is that? Is him you're here? Like, yeah, it's me.
Even the roots Taylor put down in Washington had Miami ties. Until he found a home, he stayed with college teammate Clinton Portis, and he continued courting Hurricane soccer player Jackie Garcia.
When Jackie was playing in the area, he was going to see it. One night he had even drove to Virginia Tech or something, or maybe they played Virginia, like somewhere crazy.
He would come and hang out at night, but then we had like curfew and all that stuff, so you can't really hang out past a certain time. So then if I had to, I think we had to be up like at 7 or something, he would come back like at 5, because he's like, oh, well, 5, it's not really like you're breaking the rule. Like, you can just be up early, you know? It's like, so I would wake up really early and we would hang out, you know, in the lobby downstairs.
He would be at 8 o'clock workout group and lead the workout group. Like, now I know he didn't get no sleep, and now you back in time for 8 o'clock workouts, and, you know, he the first one across the line. And then, you know, you will find out later that day, well, he worked out at 9, and he worked out with the 10 o'clock group. So you're like, what is he doing? And he probably get 3 workouts in when I couldn't survive one.
But on a Thursday in October, Taylor missed team workouts. He had been arrested the night before after a teammate's birthday party on suspicion of drunk driving.
How much have you had to drink? Just one drink?
On the tape, Taylor tells the officer he's only had 1 glass of champagne, but refuses to take a breathalyzer, so the officer administers several sobriety tests. Taylor is quizzed about the date and time and told to touch the tip of a pencil.
Taylor was released from custody in time to attend practice, but he chose to remain home.
I get on the phone with Sean, like, what you doing? Like, come to the facility. He was like, man, I'm not coming over there. You know, like, the media over there, I deal with it tomorrow. Instead of coming to the facility, he go home and cook a steak and, you know, want to play Madden. And I'm just sitting here like, man, this dude crazy.
The judge dismissed the drunk driving charge. Taylor, who rarely talks to the media, broke his silence briefly.
I feel good, man. I'm glad to be living. Glad to be walking, breathing, smiling, talking.
That whole first year, I think, was pretty traumatic, really. And I was kind of looking at it as a coach going, man, we got a great player, but this guy, he's going to be hard to handle.
Up next.
When my daughter was born, she didn't speak any English until she was 2.5. They communicated through broken Spanish. He was obsessed with her.
In the spring of 2005, the Redskins held voluntary workouts. Sean Taylor remained in Miami.
Redskins OTAs are a big deal. And it was just like, where is he? Where is he? But I never got the sense that Greg was freaked out about it.
We had little bitty safeguards going on where we were checking in with each other. No one else knew. I could trust him. He could trust me. He was spending time with his grandmother.
While in Miami, news broke that Taylor was involved in an assault concerning 2 ATVs that were stolen from him.
I was with him the day that he had to turn himself in. I think it scared him to death. You know, scared him to death.
Some guys from the neighborhood took his ATVs. He knew who they were. People from the neighborhood were calling him saying, these guys have your ATVs and they're riding up and down the streets. And he called the police. That was the first thing he did. So after 2 or 3 days of getting phone calls of these kids out here doing pop willies and clowning, he made a decision to go get his ATVs.
Taylor was accused of waving a gun and hitting one of the thieves during the altercation. Just hours later, Taylor himself was confronted.
These guys came back, with some AK-47s, and if you're familiar with an AK-47, I mean, they call it a chopper, and it would just chop everything in the way. He said the bullets were just cutting through the house, and he had to barefoot jump the fence and take off.
While Taylor was charged with assault, no one else involved in the incident was ever arrested. At training camp, Taylor declined to give his version of events to reporters.
He was never one of those guys to be like, what you're reporting about me or the stories you hear are wrong. Here's what really happened. And so from the outside world, when you hear those things, you perceive them as the truth. And then the misconception people have is that, okay, we hear these things about him living recklessly off the field, and we believe them because we watch him play football. And when he plays football, he's reckless. And so people thought that was who he was, but it wasn't.
Even for his teammates, knowing what stories to believe about Taylor could be difficult, unless witnessed in person.
When I first got here in 2005, I used to see this BMW sitting in the parking lot all the time. And I remember asking Porter, like, who car is that? He like, oh, that's Sean's. And he giggled about it. And so I'm like, why is this car here every day? And he like, oh, Sean, man, he normally runs home. So, I'm sitting here like, what? I mean, one day I caught him. I'm leaving out late, and I see him just running down the street. Those are things that now you look back at when we played the game, never got tired. That's why, because he put in the work behind closed doors that a lot of guys don't do.
We'd be up there in the office and he'd go, look at that. And it'd be Sean before practice, running 100-yard striders on the field. None of the coaches told him to do that. Just in his mind, that was something he felt like he should do.
2005 season, we had so much fun. Before the Eagles game, I was just like, I was so pumped up. I wanted to do something different. We were on a national stage, and I'm just like, man, come on, Sean, like, let's do something.
Yeah, we're getting ready to play the game, and Sean and Clinton, and they got striped socks on. What are you doing?
These are the two guys who express their individuality through their wardrobe.
It did, quite frankly, piss me off. I confronted him about it, and he goes out the next week and took 40, 50 pieces of tape and just taped up his face mask, which you can't do. I told the equipment manager, take the face mask off, get it off before he goes out there, gets another fine. And so they put it in my locker, and I'll be damned if he didn't go ahead and tape up the one they put on anyway, and he still went ahead and got fined.
What a big guy for a safety. He can cover and hold to be hit. Oh, my! What a display!
I think he loved that part of it, but it was more than just a big head. He had unusual instincts for where the ball was going to be. I remember we were at Philadelphia. We had to win the game to get in the playoffs. And all of a sudden, late in the game, there goes the ball flying around. Who comes up with it? Sean.
It's loose on the ground. 2 men, big pile up for it. Picked up by the Redskins. Sean Taylor off to the races.
He had a knack for just big plays.
He dives in for the touchdown, Redskins.
Every game, he'd do something to let you know that he wasn't from this planet and all of us were.
Feel great. We in Florida. Can't get no better. It's not a big game. It's just a game.
And off to Williams. Into the line of scrimmage and taken down. Fumble on the play. The Redskins say they've got it. Marcus rushes and loses it. Sean Taylor's got it. And he's off to the races again. Sean Taylor. He does it again. How about that?
That was probably one of the best games that you see the playmaker in him and you see the nastiness in him.
Sean Taylor and Michael Pittman squaring off.
What you doing? Both of you. Look at my face. And he's gone. And you're gone. You're gone.
I remember arguing, you know, we in the ref face. No, he didn't do it, you know. And we go back and watch film. And you just see big as day, the spit glob come out.
The word we got is he spit in Pittman's face.
He did it. What else you want me to say?
He can't spit in anybody's face. Spit at him. Okay, all right, you got it.
Taylor let his emotions get the better of him, on the field and in the delivery room.
Sean yells out, I want everybody out. Everybody out. Sean, what are you talking about? I want everybody out. So he pushes everybody at the door. Like, man, what's wrong with Sean?
Small. Little baby. She'll grow.
Yeah, she will.
He was very, very protective of her. Didn't want you to touch her, kiss her. You had to have blankets on. I used to tell him, boy, I have about 2 children. Get out my face.
There we go. Come on, a nice print for Daddy and Mommy. Come on.
He had told me that he was going to put the fingerprints of the baby on his shirt.
How does that ink print stuff come off?
So I said, hey, did you put the fingerprints of the baby on your chair? He lifts up his shirt, and there's 2 fingerprints on his chest.
This is your official I'm a Dad bracelet. Your daddy's worried about
Thank you, Alice. Your feet. That was a proud moment because he was happy, and he was able to walk away and say, I have something to do now. I have to take care of this kid, and I have a reason to do what's right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Just a month after his daughter was born, Taylor agreed to a plea deal that dismissed the felony assault charges against him. He received 18 months probation.
I think it's in my best interest for my family, for my friends, for me, for my team.
After that, he grew up. A lot of things that he did in his younger years, he cut out, like going out, you know, hanging with certain people and doing certain things. After that event, he just stuck to his family, his daughter, and football.
It changed. That thing clicked. And the little thing that he and I had from a family standpoint, his grandmother's standpoint, and now all of a sudden being a father, those things kind of clicked into him, and we all started to see a little bit calmer Sean outside the white lines.
Between the white lines, Taylor was thriving.
It's a jump ball. John Taylor there. He makes the interception. Sean Taylor, the interception.
In 2006, he earned his first trip to the Pro Bowl and delivered the hit heard round the world.
Pretty much translates in every language, doesn't it? Yes, it does.
Up next.
Customs number 1. You knew the real person was coming, the one that all of us knew, that everybody else didn't see.
He wanted to buy a house that everyone can kind of come together, you know, all his siblings. Our friend from high school was his realtor, and when he walked into the house, he stood in the kitchen. He's like, I can just picture myself and like all my family in front of me and me cooking for them.
So it was like the family house. Everybody can come there and feel comfortable. Whenever I was around all of them, it just made me feel whole.
By 2007, Sean Taylor had accomplished his goal of using football to reunite his mother's side of the family. After the birth of baby Jackie, he considered moving to Virginia full-time with his fiancée and daughter. Taylor's coaches also had a move in mind for him, from strong to free safety.
It took a while for me to convince him to line up that deep, but the time and distance that he could cover was amazing.
He was everywhere. Like, it didn't matter. Short, long, medium, run, pass. He was there. You would think it was 11 Sean Taylors, and there was only one.
You know what? He intercepted Brett Favre. Had 2 that day. He dropped 3 other ones. He should have had 5 that day.
Brett was looking him off to the last moment and slinging it to the next sideline. Sean would turn around and go beeline.
And watch Sean Taylor, when Brett Favre turned that one loose, it looked like it was going to be an easy completion and probably a touchdown.
We weren't even halfway through the year. He had 5 interceptions already.
But the best stretch of Taylor's career would come to an abrupt end.
Sean Taylor limping off the field.
He's got something going on. He's not healthy at this stage of the season right
now. The same day as his injury, Taylor's mother reported an attempted burglary at the family's Miami home.
I was in the training room. He was in the training room. He's like, hey, somebody tried to break into my house. And I'm like, dang, you know? And he's like, man, they lucky I wasn't there. And he's like, man, my kid and my girl be there, man. I don't want them, somebody's doing this to me.
Sean Taylor's home has been broken into. Someone pried open a window, rifled through his drawers, and tried to get into his safe in his bedroom.
We weren't allowed to go back to the house. I mean, if somebody breaks into your house, you don't know what happened. It's almost like your privacy's been invaded, so I think the best thing to do is not go back.
While his teammates traveled to Tampa, an injured Taylor flew to Miami to check on his home and family.
We woke up that day and we went on a bike ride, and then that night we all went back and I cooked, and we spoke about that we were gonna, move to Virginia, and we were gonna start he called it our niche there, and it was like the sense of peace inside of him, it was just I remember going to sleep that night and being like, God, if it could just be like this every day, wow, my life is gonna be amazing.
Some jolting news off the field on Monday. Redskins safety Sean Taylor in critical condition after he was shot in his Florida home early Monday morning. Police officers were dispatched to Taylor's Miami area home at 1:45 a.m. and Taylor was later airlifted to a local hospital.
The first thing I was thinking is, where is he? Why would he be shot? He's not even supposed to be here. I didn't even know he was in town because he really didn't tell too much of us that he was coming that weekend.
He was home with his girlfriend, Jackie Garcia, and their 18-month-old daughter. They heard noise in the living room, were awakened, got up. Sean locked the bedroom door, went under his bed for a small machete that he keeps under there. By the time he got to the bedroom door, it was burst open, and 2 shots were fired. One hit him in the upper leg, and one hit the wall. He was bleeding profusely from the leg. Apparently, his femoral artery was hit, and he was bleeding out.
I went inside the room. He was laying there. They had some machines hooked up. I was holding his hand. I was talking to him. Just say, hey, it's going to be okay. You got to fight. I say, regardless of what, you understand, it's going to be a struggle. You have to fight. You remember hard work. You got to push through this.
After a day-long stream of grave news, a glimmer of hope came Monday night from the bedside vigil for Sean Taylor.
The doctor asked him to move his eyes. He responded. And he also asked him to squeeze his hands, and he responded.
although, you know, there were reports saying that, you know, he was doing better, it didn't look good at all. They were giving him a blood transfusion, and around the bed they had like sheets, and as the blood, you know, they put it in, it was just coming out.
I remember going back to the room, man, thinking about if we make it through the night, that everything gonna be okay. And I dozed off, and I woke up to banging on the door. It was like boom, 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 boom. And I remember opening my eyes, and I looked at the window. And when I looked at the window, it was still dark out.
And I banged on the door, and I could hear him start crying immediately. And he opened the door. I was in tears, and it was terrible.
Couldn't sleep. I was hoping that next call would be, he's all right. That next call. That next call was the worst call I probably had in my life today.
It was the doctor, Pete, and I. He said if the bullet would have went in 1/8 of an inch, up, down, left, or right, there would be no more in the flesh wound. And then he said Sean was dead when he got here. And he said that he never seen a man fight for his life as hard as he did.
Coming up.
I've gotten to tell stories about Sean more because people ask me, why am I wearing number 21 to practice? I just loved him, and I want everybody else to.
In the days after Sean Taylor's death, his team grappled with how to spend a season and a lifetime without him.
I was asleep in bed. I looked up in the corner. I heard his voice. I saw him. And he said, "Coach, that play's over. Let's get on to the next one." Before we got ready to play that Sunday game, we said, hey, nobody in this room will ever be able to substitute or replace him as a player. We need to play one play for him.
Washington has only 10 players on defense. Reed Doughty is the guy who's expected to replace Sean Taylor in the lineup. He's on the sideline. Edwards on a handoff to Fred Jackson, cutting to the outside. Jackson turns the corner and hit. And now Reed Doughty will come on.
I think we gave up a 50-yard run, and it didn't matter. This was for Sean.
Some did not wait for details to emerge about Taylor's murder. He experienced legal trouble early in his career and played violently on the field. They saw his death as an extension of the lifestyle they thought he lived.
When Sean passed away, Michael Wilbon really upset me from ESPN because he kind of made it seem like if there was one player in the league that you would expect this to happen to, it would have been Sean, you know. And Sean wasn't an angel.
Colin Cowherd was on ESPN radio. And he's talking about how this is what you get
This is the natural reaction to your actions. This guy asked for it. Act like a thug, want to be a thug, die like a thug was basically the connotation of what he was saying.
Waving his gun out there when he thought somebody stole his SUV. There is a track record here with Sean Taylor. Let's just go read it yourself.
Maybe what you're saying now, there's some truth to it, but right now we don't know the facts yet.
There were assumptions made about how he brought this on himself. Just weeks before, there had been a birthday party at Taylor's house for his sister, and it was her friends from Fort Myers who had come to clean the pool deck. Sean Taylor had paid one of the guys who ended up being involved in this $300. Other guys had got access to the house. They saw how generous he was with his money. He gave bags of money to his sister and brother in front of his friends. And it was that generosity that ended up inviting these scoundrels from Fort Myers to come and do what they did.
I was upset. I felt a lot of things. Even to this day, it hurts really bad. It hurts. And now it's like I never trusted anybody before, but now it's like it's really hard to trust like anybody.
Hey, Your Honor, I want to actually just speak to the family.
I had already made up my mind that I was going to forgive him. But I wanted to know if, he was worthy of it.
I know my words may not mean much. Over the past 6 years, I learned that Mr. Taylor was a good man. And I'm not making excuses for my decisions or my actions.
He was trying to say he was sorry, but he wouldn't look anybody in the eyes. I stood up and I said, look at me.
I live with his death every day, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences. And I'm truly sorry for your loss.
I wanted to know if he really was sorry. He wouldn't look.
What should Sean Taylor's legacy look like? In life, he never gave the outside world a full picture of the man he was. Is it even possible to capture his memory in one image?
There's not a day I take that jersey off of a hanger and I don't think about it. People ask me, why am I wearing number 21 in practice? Every day I wear it, it sparks up a conversation about him. For as long as I play, that's what I care about.
It's not a single day that go by that you can't come up with a memory of Sean and put you in a better mood.
Sean's always with me. He's looking over my shoulder at all times to make sure everything is right. So I put that crystal monument behind me that he has my back.
I'm coaching my 10-year-old grandson. I put him playing corner, and he goes, I don't want to play corner. And I went, Ty, I says, what do you want to play? And he goes, I want to play safety. I'm Sean Taylor. He goes like that.
One day I was at the Dade County Youth Fair down in Miami, and this little kid walked by. Me and my friend Bo, we looked, and like, a mouse dropped. It was Sean. Who comes 10 feet behind him? Pedro. Oh yeah, that's Sean's brother.
There's a greatness in every one of us. It's always good to see Gabriel looking up to someone that did the work that you can follow.
To me and to like his daughter, like he was a living hero. He left himself in her. He was such an amazing person outside of his career that a lot of people didn't get to see. He would have been an amazing father.